Good morning. It's Wednesday morning, 9 o'clock, and it's Norma Cowie here with Norma Talks. Today, I wanted to talk about the power of your thoughts, how your thinking creates your vibration. One of the beginnings of metaphysics is, I think no matter what teacher you're with or what book you're reading, they always talk about how thoughts are important. You see, everyone talks about it's your word. Well, not everyone talks about it's your word, but you know what I mean. It's sort of general that what you speak is very important. And it is, because when you speak, you have power. There's power with it. But the reality is you are thinking all the time, even when you're not aware of it. So the most important element is, how are you thinking? What are you thinking? How are those thoughts going? Are they what you really want in your life? So the power of the thought is really where we go when we want to make a change in our lives, or we want to have things move a little smoother, or whatever it is that you want to do. It takes a while if you're not used to listening or watching. It's actually watching what your thoughts are. And what I found, what I used to do is spend a little bit of time every day and sit back and watch the thoughts go across without judgment. Excuse me, just watching what's going on, what's happening in here. You wouldn't think I've spent nearly 10 minutes trying to clear this throat up this morning, would you? But that's life sometimes too. Every thought that goes on within your brain, how I teach it, and I've done this quite often on the program, is show it's like a Ferris wheel. Thought comes up, it goes out, and it goes back into the subconscious. When you think a thought a lot, like, it's like obsessive thinking, instead of the thought jumping off the Ferris wheel, it stays on the Ferris wheel. So the seat. And when you become an obsessive thinker, like, got one thought and that's it all the time, it's on every seat of that, going round and round and round and round. And so what happens is the vibration that you're on gets locked into whatever that thinking pattern is. So what if you want to change things? What if you don't like what's going on, but you would like to change how your life is? You start with your thinking. You start with your thoughts. First of all, you need to observe them, to watch what exactly you're thinking, because very often we're not aware of what our thoughts are. So it's like we watch, we see, and then we realize what we don't want. Now, one of the things I talk about a lot of how we to change the thinking is to freeze, evaporate, and then replace it with what you want. So it's like, first of all, observing. What am I actually thinking? Especially if it's on a part of your life you really want to change. I just sit back sometimes and watch to see what I'm generally putting out there. Because I'm like everybody else. I can pick up things from other people. I can get caught up with something that's going on. But then I can be obsessive with that as well. Try not to do that, though. So you sit back, you watch the thoughts go across the conscious mind. You find the ones that you really do not want because they're not supporting what you want to have in your life, or how you want to be, how you want to act, how you want to respond. And then you do my little freeze, evaporate it, and replace it with what you do want. What I find with a lot of my clients is that they don't know what they want. They just don't like where they're at. They don't really know what they want to replace it with. And this is where goal setting comes in and becomes important, because you have to have some idea of what it is you're wanting. If you don't like, let's say you don't like A and you want B, you got to know you want B in order to clear A to get B in. So the thoughts consistently are going out. I think when you're sleeping, maybe not. I haven't been able to check that because I'm sleeping. But people dream, and very often dreams have a part to play with what's going on in what we call the conscious mind. But the conscious mind is just what you're aware of here. It's what goes down into that subconscious, because the subconscious is always working with your belief systems, what you generally think, all that, the sort of day-to-day routine of everything. So first of all, learn how to watch your thinking. Just take a few moments every day to sit back and just watch what the ticker tape is doing. What's it saying? And some people are very, very, very surprised by what comes up, what they are thinking. Now, when you begin to do this for a certain length of time, you begin to see the pattern of your thoughts, the pattern of how life brings back what you want. And so to me, I think is something that we need to always do every now and again, like sit down and do sort of an inventory. What is our thinking? What's going on here? What's our thoughts? Because that's where your power is. People say it's on how you say things or the words you say. Well, yes, the words have power because once they've spread, once you have said them, you can't take them back. Whereas thoughts you can, because you can freeze, evaporate, and replace them. You can change them. You can do that. And that's where the real power of you changing your life is that's what you want to do. How do you change your life? Is that you've got to get hold of the thinking pattern. What are your thoughts mostly about? And are they reflective of what you're wanting to create in the bigger picture? So the key is to watch the thoughts, watch what's happening, and then learn how to replace them so that they can begin to work with what it is you're really wanting as an end result in relation to your life. I learned this from one of my teachers, the technique of this, refined it for my own self, and I have used it many, many times to create what I specifically want, or just what I generally want sometimes. I have spoken about the power of the thank you a lot too. And because when you put this getting in touch with your thoughts, and so your power of your thought, and then you apply that with the power of thank you in relation to the energy that's out there that works with you and creates for you and does everything that you want. There's a whole different element that begins to take place about what we call mastery. You may have been in your reading, or when you're reading a book or listening to a speaker, you might have heard the word mastery, to become a master, or to have mastery on your life. Just means that you're more in command of what's going on, because life, believe me, I know, life can still throw just really all of a sudden everything goes crazy and you're having to scramble a little bit. But when you know the basics, it's very easy to get back on track, back on the awareness of what you're wanting to create or what you're wanting to do. What I find is the majority of people don't give their day-to-day thoughts too much thought. They just, well, here it is. This is what I do. This is what I say. This is how it works. But the reality is, it's those everyday thoughts that is making your vibration. It is bringing to you what it is that you want to have in your life, or don't want it to have. But if you don't want to have it, then you don't give the power of your thought to it. You give it nothing to hang on to or to be. Sometimes in our lives, situations happen over which we have no control. We live in a larger picture. We live in a larger movement. We've got, our country has a certain thought patterning. People around us have a thought patterning. Some people are very strong in their thinking and some are not. And you're in the middle with everything going on around. And some things you can have no real effect, and other things you can have a lot of effect. But what you can have an effect is how your life is working, how you are feeling. So now we need to talk about how we generate or how we get power to get what we want. Don't really like the way I said that, to get what we want, but in a way, that's exactly how it works. So You begin, first of all, to find out what your thought pattern is, what your vibration. Think of yourself as a radio station, okay? The radio station. Now, on the radio station, we don't like what the tune is, you change the channel. So then if you don't like what you're thinking, if you don't like what your life is giving you or bringing back to you, you have to change the channel. You start here. You start with isolating what thought it is or your reaction to something, what thought it is that's behind it. And you freeze it, you evaporate it, you replace it with what you do want to happen. Sometimes you have to do that several times to find the right frequency for what you really are wanting. It's not always a clear-cut thing like, oh yeah, I want this, because often when we kind of go to create, this is not really what we want. So it's really about really becoming aware on that part. Now, as time goes on and your thinking is much more in alignment of how you want to live your life, and situations begin to change and you begin to feel yourself more happier, more contented, all those things that we work for. Now, you want to start creating exactly how you want things to be. And the way you create things how you actually want them to be comes from the emotion. Emotions is the power. So the thought is there, but until the power of your emotion comes behind it, it doesn't always have the power of it. It's called the power. Now, unfortunately, in some ways, anger is probably our most powerful emotion that goes out when we're angry. I don't get angry very often anymore, but the power of it. So what if you're able to know what you want, but you know now we've got to give some energy around that thought so it has power, is that you find something that you were maybe upset, not angry at, and what I talk about is you clean up the anger part, but you keep the energy, and you put that with the thought. So when the thought goes out, it has some power. I haven't done that for some time, actually, but I have done it, and it works. When you get clean. They talk about clean energy, and I'm thinking, well, that's exactly what this is. You clean up the anger, the frustration, all that stuff that makes life kind of a little bit miserable. You get that out of the way, but you leave the power to put behind your thinking. So now you're thinking what you want, but it has a little bit of power to it, has some oomph to it. So you've got to be really sure that what your thought is that you're wanting to create is exactly what you want to create, and it's exactly how you want it to be. So it's really about experimentation to a large degree, to experiment how to create, to be in the power, so that you begin to create things that you really, really are wanting. Now, I've had to do this several times in my life when things have not worked, and I got to take a look at what's going on, correct a few things in my own thinking pattern, and then begin to work on what it is I'm really wanting. Very few people go through their whole lives without having something not quite work, because they're involved with the whole humanity. And sometimes the humanity's picture is bigger than ours. But we can still be in command of what is happening and what is going on around us, to us, and how we're responding to it. Well, we are responsible in a way, I think, for how we respond to things. And I know for myself, I haven't always responded well to certain things. And because I'm a human and I have emotions and I have reactions. But when you're wanting to be in a place where you're calm and comfortable, and if you meditate, or a lot of people do yoga or run or do whatever to get themselves into a nice state of mind, you can really begin to come to terms with how your thinking is. You can come to terms with what is, I'm going to use the word bugging because I don't know what else to say. You know, when those things bug you, like somebody's maybe behavior, voices I'm often triggered a little bit by voices, not as much now that but when I was younger, I used to be. And maybe, not saying it was always that way, maybe their voice, a person's voice, would trigger me emotionally because it responded to somebody else I knew earlier in my life. That maybe wasn't such a good experience. We have input all the time, especially with our TVs and things and radios and iPods and everything else that's going on. We have a lot of input coming in, where if we even went back, well, 100 years would be that's much easier. None of this airwaves input that we get. When you think about sitting here, I'm sitting here talking to you, can't see you, of course. But airways are going out, and where are they going? Through your house. It's going through everybody. Not everybody's tuning in to see what I have to say particularly, but those airways are still going through. And we are bombarded by airwaves. And I remember way back, I think, I don't know, it was in the 50s when it really started. And I was quite still young then. And that people were worried about, what diseases, cancers, what other things would happen by this bombardment of radio waves and other waves that were going on. And then we all got microwaves, and then we all had this, and then you weren't supposed to be standing too close to your microwave. And then I don't hear too much about that anymore, about all the waves. And now we're going into 5G, and it's like, oh, we just got more waves. But I say, be aware of your own wave. That's your own way of thinking, your own way of what you're putting out there, because what you put out there will come back, because we're powerful. And if you have an incessant thought that goes on and on and on, it will definitely come back. Because when you have an incessant thought, you know what I mean by that, when you kind of, that it's always there, or it comes back, you think it a lot. It's usually we're giving it power. And when we give it the power, it comes and manifests quicker. See, the universe really says, okay, you're thinking this, you've got power with this, you must really want this, because it has no judgment. People forget that whatever you call it, the name that doesn't matter, but to me, it's a love source that's out there that loves you unconditionally. It doesn't have there's no judgment here, just loves you. And how does it know what to bring to you? Through your thinking. How does it know what you want? Through your thinking. But now, if you put energy behind those thoughts, it gets it quicker. And guess what? It shows up in your world. And this is how we call creating our worlds, creating our lives, creating the miracles that come along. Does it always happen? No. Sometimes some of my things I've worked on have not manifested, but I think also, do I really want that? That's what I'm really starting to look at these days. When I think, I really think, well, I'd like this to happen or that to happen. And then it doesn't. I go, what did I do? And sometimes I find there's a little part of me that's not 100% sure I really want that in my life. And of course, then when something unexpected happens, which happened to me, 18 months or so ago now, it's like, what's this doing here? But sometimes too, we have these experiences we go through that just come down. And I think there's a bigger karmic picture on that for whatever reason. Maybe it's all those airwaves that were around at one time. I'm not sure. Anyway, another little saying I have is, it's not the event that's important. It's how you handle the event. And so consequently, when you're creating with your thinking, you may not always get exactly what you think. And especially if you put some energy on it, it may come in a different way. And so again, how do we handle that? Being in command of creating your life sometimes is difficult. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's like, what am I really doing? I'm not really sure, because I'm not getting what I want. But most of us don't always get what we want. but we can endeavor to be as comfortable as we can in life. We can also recognize, again, as I said, it's not the event itself or the situation, it's how do we handle it. There are times in my life when I look back, I haven't handled things very well. But guess what? You usually have another one come along very similar that you're going to see if you've learned from it. Because life is a learning proposition. We grow, we learn, we become more aware. Actually, I think personally, to live this life, we need a sense of humor. We need to be able to laugh at ourselves sometimes. We need to be able to see a much bigger picture than what is presented. Now, if you know at all your astrology chart, you will know what kind of pattern you form in. And I'm kind of one of the person that's very focused. And that can't always be the best way to be, because when you're very focused and when you're very driven, what ends up happening is that you miss a lot. And so it's like being open, learning how to open up and be open and flow easier than doing. But that's where astrology really can come in handy for you to understand some of those basic patterns are there. But for me, I always think it goes back to how am I thinking? How am I reacting? How am I responding? How am I being in relation to what life is presenting to me? And am I just it's like being in a restaurant, and I've mentioned this before, and I've been in restaurants where people I'm with have turned to the waitress because they're busy talking, just bring me whatever. I've never done that. I'm always very clear about what I want being brought to me. But life sometimes is like that. It just brings you whatever. It's like, here, so how do you handle that one? What do you do with that? And that's where you've got to really be aware of the thought patterns. Are you in reaction? Are you in response? Are you looking at it practically about how does it fit into your life and what you want? What do you do? Do you overreact? Do you just forget about it, ignore it? Or do you say, okay, what do I want in this? What do I want? Where do I want to be at the end of this as this works out? Not always an easy task, but as you learn how to come into command of your thinking, couple it with your emotion, clear emotion, then it makes things every which way it works. Well, that's my Sunday. That's not Sunday thought. Sorry. That's my Wednesday morning talk. Look at your thinking. Sit back. Just sit back. I love the summers for this, actually. I do a lot of this in the summer because I can sit outside where it's warm and I can just watch what is the ticker taker in my brain is going through. What's the vibration? What's it looking? What's it sort of connected to? What's it wanting? And is it what I want? Because I know it will create what it wants because it's habit. And that's a story for another day. Anyway, thank you for watching. Okay, Khaled, it's always so good to see you here, and I love your comments. Thank you so much. And in the meantime, I will be back on Sunday with a Sunday thought. You have a great rest of the week. Bye now.